Hi everybody, I'm Lawrence Webb, current IOSH president. I'm joined by Louise Hosking, immediate past president. Say hello to everybody, Louise.
Hello, everybody.
So thanks for taking the time to come along. Myself and Louise have decided to put this short recording together for any of you that are interested in picking up a role on IOSH Council, perhaps on the presidential team. And this is on the basis of what we've called Ask Me Anything sessions, which we've run as a number of webinars for a couple of years, but it would be really great just to have another opportunity for you to get an insight in terms of the workings of everything that you as a volunteer might decide to sign up to. But we have said here within reason, because we've only got so much time. We're only looking to take up maybe 15 minutes of your valuable time, but we'll get through as many things as we can that we hope you'll find of interest and of value as a volunteer, as a member, and as somebody who hopefully wants to join us in the work that we do within IOSH. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about very much the role of council, the function of council, a little bit in terms of the governance behind it all. We're going to look at the nominations committee and explain what that particular group of people does and what roles might be available. And then the presidential team, which is another angle, very much ambassadorial to get out and about and fly the flag for IOSH. Anything else to add, Louise?
Yeah, no, I love what it says is we need active and forward thinking people. So coming on to council is all about generating ideas and strategy and forward looking. But don't forget that your CPD will be checked. And so make sure that if you are going to apply, that your CPD is current.
Yeah, really, really important point, and it does get checked on a regular basis. So just a bit of a refresher. I'm sure that those of you tuning into this will be aware, but let's not forget what IOSH is as the chartered professional membership body for OSH professionals. So the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health has a royal charter. So this basically means that we have a range of charitable objects which are in place to make sure that we exist for the public good. We are seen very much as an enabling organisation, because we're an enabling profession, and it's really important that the IOSH is actually there to help and support organisations around the world and governments and different types of businesses to absolutely do the best by our profession, and through that fantastic opportunity we have to influence. We've got over 50,000 members across the world, and absolutely the lifeblood of who we are, what we do, and we work literally across the global stage. So 130 plus countries, and we literally do get involved in operating at government level, advising, supporting, giving advice in terms of the decisions that are made around the world of OSH. And as part of that, we very much see ourselves as a thought leader. So we engage in lots of research or facilitating research to be done, and basically supporting the expertise and of course our brilliant members around the world to make sure the right messaging is out there, and that people have the best possible opportunity to benefit from what we bring as a profession. And I'm sure you'd agree with that,
Yeah,
Louise. It's
no.
a great organisation to be involved in.
It really is. And coming onto council will give you so much back and you'll learn so much too. And this really underpins, what IOSH is all about. So again, if you're going to apply for council, all of this information is on the website. And so it's just good for you to just think about who IOSH is, why we exist, and what it is that you feel that you can bring to council personally too.
No, absolutely. That's massively important. It is about your own knowledge, skills, experience, but you, the person, what is it that you, the individual, can bring to this bigger picture? So I've already mentioned the fact that we do have a series of charitable objects, and what you can see in front of you here is really useful information for you in terms of setting an idea in your own mind in terms of what you're going to potentially bring to IOSH, the thing to remember is that our main aim, our key vision is to make sure that we're looking after safe and healthy working environments across the world, and that we're supporting our colleagues in the OSH profession to actually do this. And you can see there the overall summary of those charitable aims. So making sure that we're promoting wherever we can the agenda itself, and making sure that we're giving the right advice, the right guidance, helping members improve themselves, but also making sure that the communication flow between us and other disciplines and those we're trying to influence is as healthy as possible, and clearly looking after our own members and wherever they sit in the membership structure, all the way up to chartered fellows, because all of this together helps us improve health and safety across the global world of work.
Yeah, and I guess the way to really think about this is that, council is elected by our members. So that's what's so amazing about this role. And you're going to be in council, and all of this is talking about, we focus on the members. Of course, we focus on the members. We also focus on, how to make sure that IOSH runs as an organisation well and effectively as well. And, you'll be, we talk about what the trustees do and how we provide advice and guidance through to the board, and we'll talk about that in a second. And it's also the wider profession. So I always think about it in those three pieces. So membership, IOSH as an institution, and the broader profession, and that gives us the public, that's all about our public benefit piece as well, which is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I've said, one thing you need to remember in all of this is our overall vision of a safe and healthy world of work, and we do mean world of work. So that global stage, right the way across different sectors of business and industry, thinking about the governmental perspective, thinking about those key stakeholders that we work alongside, such as the World Health Organization, the International Labour Organization, UN Global Compact, Commonwealth, all these other organizations that we're working with and engaging with. We're trying to influence and make sure that ultimately this vision is exactly what we're all about, and we need to do that together. So listen, Louise, governance, this is your
I love
thing. Tell everybody
governance.
about governance.
I love governance. So the way that governance is really important for it's important for any type of organization, but it's particularly important for a charity such as IOSH. So governance is, I always think about where council fits in is it's about hindsight, foresight, and oversight. So what is it that we could have learned and we could have done differently? What is it, that we're doing well at the moment? How can we extend that? And also sort of future scanning. So thinking about what's going forward. But, this around governance, if you think about people, purpose, process, and performance. So what are the different elements that have to be in place to make an organisation such as IOSH effective in what it does and actually discharge its charitable objects? And the work that an example of a piece of work that council has done is to be really involved with the new strategy, so Activate 2028. And so that was an example of something that came through council. Council discussed and debated certain elements of that, and then council works with the board, and the board has the legal responsibility for making decisions around how IOSH functions, and council is responsible for providing advice and guidance to the board, and also overseeing that kind of assurance. They're going to hold the board to account. So our role in council is to professionally question and provide ideas. And a little later on, we're going to talk about how we do that in council. And our relationship with the board is really important. And, you know, certainly is in my term as chair of council, which Lawrence has extended, we've been working more and more closely with the board. And so what that means is that the member's voice is coming through as a really strong golden thread.
Yeah, massively
So
important.
and also the board has some subcommittees underneath them, which we'll look at in a second, and the board discharges some of those responsibilities to their committees as well. So council provides advice and guidance and assurance, and we've got other aspects that we look at as well, like electing vice presidents. We're going to talk about the nominations committee a bit later on. And so it's this pool of people that come together that represent the membership.
Yeah, I mean, let's have a look at that governance structure in its entirety, because you've led into this really nicely, Louise, in terms of the fact that you can see the members at the core, at the front end of this. Really important, as Louise has just said. The members actually elect the members of council to represent them in exactly the way that Louise has just described, and that representation then goes into the board of trustees and ultimately into the chief executive, Peter Bonfield, and of course there is a senior leadership team that then take those outputs and turn them into a reality. But do you want to talk a little bit about the four board of trustees groups, committees?
Yeah, so I mean, this diagram is super important. So if you are successful in coming into council, it's really important to be mindful of how this information flows. And this is, we have a really good governance structure within IOSH, and council has a direct link into the board, exactly as shown is in this diagram. And that means that we're actually linking into the highest level within the institution. So when you come to council, that's the work that you'll be doing. You'll be working to influence the board. Council does not tell IOSH or the chief executive or the senior leadership what to do. So that really comes through the board. So the board discharges certain responsibilities because there's a lot for a board to do, and the board of trustees sits above the whole group that is IOSH. And so the board have got certain functions that they delegate to board committees. So those board committees are shown there. And if you want to find out a little bit more about how those board committees work, then there's lots of information on the IOSH website. But what I would say is one of the really big benefits of coming onto council that you will be able to take back to your day job, and I think, Lawrence, we've really seen this with the council over the last 18 months, is that you're going to learn how to influence boards in a very professional way. So you'll come into council and you'll be creating papers and you'll learn how to influence, and we give you lots of support and training along the way as well. So this diagram is really important and really clearly shows our governance structure in kind of one hit. So members will choose council, and council is there to represent the members to the board, and the board then will work with the chief executive and the senior leadership team to discharge those board responsibilities via the trustees.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the nominations committee just in just a second, but I think, Louise, you made a really good point. This coming onto council and in fact the presidential team that we'll talk about at the end is a great development opportunity, because you get to network with a lot of really good people from lots of different backgrounds. Every day is a school day. You will learn some new things. We've certainly been trying to make sure that council's thinking from a strategic perspective in the way that it comes up with its own work plans, but then puts the usual operational hat on to understand what it's like to be the senior leadership team who may end up having to do things on behalf of the work that they've put in. So it's a really important aspect of everything that we do. And I mean, Louise, you've already talked a fair bit about council and the makeup, and I think it's important to remember that the council itself is made up of people from the global stage, from so many different backgrounds. Everybody brings something slightly different, and the one thing that you'll be asked to consider if you decide to come forward is what you think the role of council is. So everything that Louise has just said is really important. So bear that in mind. This is the structure as it stands, and I'll get Louise to talk a little bit about our steering groups in just a minute. But what we're looking at here is typically 36 council members elected by the membership, as we've said. You've also got 9 ex officio officers, and this is effectively the presidential team, and we're going to come on to the presidential team shortly. There's also an opportunity for up to 6 co-optees, 3 which are put in place by the current president, and then 3 for council if they're needed to support them in the work that they do. But talk a little bit about steering groups, Louise, because this is important.
So this was my baby, wasn't it? So yeah, so as president, you're also chair of council, so you're and we go on to talk about how we choose the president, but your president-elect the year before, and I certainly had time to sort of sit back and think about how I was gonna how I saw my year as chair of council. And as we can see from those numbers, council is big, and there's also the nominations committee as well. So in a work environment, we wouldn't have one mass of people all working to be heard. We would structure it. So we created the steering groups when I became chair of council, and the purpose of the steering groups is to divide up council into the different responsibilities that council has. So the response, and this means that council is discharging its full responsibilities. So we have 4 steering groups. So council effectiveness is responsible for doing what it says on the tin. Basically, they look across council to make sure that council is operating as effective as possible. And something that we also introduced into that group was a regular council connect session. So all council members can come together just informally. And we always have what we call a bite-sized training. So just to support and help council members to be as effective as possible. And we've recorded all of those. So when you come onto council, we've got a Teams page, and you can access all of that learning, which is great. Member representation, again, does what it says on the tin. So that's very much, what are members saying? What's the mood music? They also oversee the regular member connect that all of our members can come into and speak to council members. And part of what they're doing is really thinking strategically, what are the main things that council is saying that we need to potentially make sure that the board is aware of. Strategy and policy will look at strategic pieces and say, we feel, these are the things that the board should be considering in terms of strategy and policy. And then we've got the future of the profession that are really horizon scanning and saying, this is what we need to do in the future. So this enables us to have discussions in smaller groups, because actually coming together as a collective, and council meets virtually 3 times a year, and then we have a big face-to-face meeting in the autumn, which is 2 days. And it can feel, particularly when you start, if you think about when you started at work and first went into meetings, it can feel a little bit, oh, I've got something to say, but I'm not quite sure if I'm going to. The beauty of the steering groups is that you'll get to know your team, and you can come together within the steering group and feel that your voice is heard. And we want every single voice to be heard. That's really important. But there's lots of opportunity for you to come together as groups, and you may well work cross groups as well. And you're going to get to know a whole raft of new people, which would be amazing. The other piece that we've got on the diagram there is the council observer role. And again, this has been something that, you know, I feel is super, super important. So the president-elect and the president have really important places on the board. So they will take everything that council has decided to board, and they have a voice on the board. But we know that a lot of the board decisions now are being delegated to their subcommittees, which we looked at. So the council observer is there to ensure that the committees of the board operate under their terms of reference as well. Again, you'll find those on the IOSH website. So overall, the steering groups have, you know, operated really well. Each one's got a chair and a vice chair. So again, you get leadership opportunities in there, and you will be completely supported. And that's part of the role of the co-ops as well. So the co-ops will be determined by the chair of council during their year to really help council to operate effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. We often get asked the question, well, how much time does all of this take? And the honest answer is it really does depend on what you can give as a volunteer. But I mean, if we said anything between 8 to 12 days, somewhere in that region, as I say, it really depends on what the steering groups are looking at. But it's really important that the steering groups focus on fewer things, but doing them really well, that are going to land well, be high value, high impact. And that can mean that on occasions there isn't as much to do, and on other times there's a lot more to do. So it tends to sort of balance out, but everybody will bring along what they can when they can, and you'll find that the chair of each of the groups will help move things along to be as efficient and effective as possible. And we'll talk a little bit about the nominations committee, because it is on that diagram. This is a massively important role, because the nominations committee is actually there to make sure that the people that actually want to come into this process, that the likes of future board members, for example, that they are actually the right people for the role. So they hold a very, very important place within the governance structure, and they will review applications for people that come through the process. As I say, board members are a really, really good example, looking at all the different skills that they actually bring and what their experiences look like against what the needs of any particular role are. So this is a very important part of the structure. But because of the fact it's that type of role, you won't be able to be a member of council at the same time, for example, because there's a conflict of interest there. But we are currently looking for 2 committee members who come from council, but also 2 further members that could be members of IOSH. They could be non-members as well, because that's a really good independence. And we're also looking for a committee chair. And as I say, this is a really, really important.
This is a really good committee to be in. It's there's some really great volunteer opportunities within IOSH, and everybody that sits on the nominations committee gets a lot out of it. So and again, as the presidential team, I think, we've worked with the nominations committee. I mean, to give you an example of what the nominations committee did, is I was involved when I was president-elect with interviewing our current chair of the board, Dr. Peter Bonfield. And so that's something that the nominations committee will oversee. And they work incredibly hard, and they do such a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. So if this is something that sounds like it might be of interest, you can see at the bottom that there is another website address within the bigger corporate IOSH website. take a little look and consider this as a possible role for you, because in particular, if you do come from that HR and recruitment background, that's very much what this is geared up to. And as Louise says, it could be looking at future chair of IOSH. It could be
Yeah,
the co-optees
yeah.
that the chair of council or council wants to bring to the table. So you will get a really good range of opportunity. And
And just to
let's
say on that nominations committee as well, is again another role of council is that the nominations committee will provide a recommendation of who to choose to council, and then council votes it through as a whole.
Yeah, no, good point. Yeah, it's important to flag that. Um, okay, so let's bring this towards a close
Oh,
and
look
do
at that
so.
lovely picture of us
I
all,
know.
Lauren.
Look at my little
Look at us
hamster-like chops
all.
there. I know. But we need to talk about the presidential team. This is a different role. The presidential team is very much the outward-facing ambassadorial aspect, who still have a place on council. So you can see, for example, Louise is there, I'm there. At this particular time, you can actually see myself coming in as president, Louise becoming immediate past president, and then Stuart Hughes, who's in the middle of the picture there with the very smart-looking chap. He was coming in as president-elect and will replace me later on this year. The people in between, they're vice presidents. But from my perspective, we're all equally important, because what we do is we serve as that outward facing team who are there to present to the different branches, go to the different exhibitions, maybe have trips to different countries, even to talk about the work of IOSH, to talk about the key themes, to talk about our strategy, to talk about the likes of safety and health actually being a fundamental principle and right at work. So it's a fantastic opportunity for those of you who perhaps like the idea of being out there, public facing, on the stage, or maybe supporting branches, sector groups, and other volunteering activities that go on behalf of the membership. And this is a fantastic opportunity as well, because again, you're out there in that wider network. It's also really useful to be sitting on council, because you understand all the dynamics and all the decisions that are being made, and it gives you an awful lot of knowledge and confidence to be able to go out there and support IOSH and our members, and of course the profession as a whole, on that global stage. So you and I have both really taken to that aspect of the role
Yeah.
in the past, haven't we?
I mean, what I would say about becoming a vice president, or applying for president elect. I mean, certainly in terms of vice president, it feels like for most people who come onto council, they kind of see it as a progression to potentially apply for vice president. I didn't come onto council first, so I was able to apply for vice president because I had a position in a committee at branch level. So do have a look at whether you are eligible to apply for a vice president, and don't feel that you have to be on council. Although we always do have council members apply to become vice presidents, because they're much closer to everything that goes on, and so they have that understanding of what's involved. But you will, I mean, you will gain so much, and
Mm.
you'll learn about public speaking. You'll be in meetings with other organizations and see how they operate. So it's a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
In terms of president-elect, our president, there's a couple of ways to become president-elect, but the main way that people become president-elect, it is from council. So that's a little bit, the application process for president-elect is a little bit different. And again, most people who become, apply for president-elect have been a vice president, which is a good training ground. But you don't have to have been a vice president to be president-elect. But again, double check on the website in terms of your eligibility.
Yeah, and also think about the commitment, because I mean there is
Yeah,
a bit of
absolutely.
traveling, but obviously we live in this virtual world now where a lot of the meetings and a lot of the presentations can be done like this through
Mhm.
Teams or Zoom or other platforms are available. But I think for me, as someone who enjoys that whole networking and engagement piece, it's hugely rewarding, and you do get supported. There's media training, for example. And it's just another great string to your bow if that's what you're interested in. I mean, you could be the next president of IOSH.
Yes.
Who knows?
We
Watching
want
this
people to
today.
come through, and also you're going to meet some amazing people.
Mm.
I mean, I met you, Lawrence.
Yeah. No, well, exactly. What can I say? What can I
We
say? I was
didn't work
almost stunned
together
into
before
silence
then,
there.
did we?
So the final thing then is if you're thinking about coming onto the presidential team, specific criteria here just for the vice president. You do need to be a chartered member, or you can be a member of a network, such as a branch, as Louise already mentioned. It could be that you're involved in other things such as different committees or whatever, or you could be a chartered fellow. But the main thing for me is that you have that personality that wants to be out there
Yeah.
and wants to be waving those flags. And I think it's a fantastic role. It's
It's a
different to
once in a
council, but it's just as good.
lifetime opportunity, I would
Yeah.
say.
No,
And it's just,
absolutely.
do you know what? If you've got a little inkling that you might like to do it, just apply. Don't worry about whether you can tick everything off. Just go for it. And, we need, whether it be in council or the presidential team, we need these teams to represent the world of work. So just go for it.
Absolutely, and that's a great place to finish, because the more diverse we are as a team from across that global stage, the better placed we are to make the right decisions. The better debates and discussions we're going to have, the more we're going to influence, and therefore, the more we're going to add value. So I think that's a really good place
It
to leave
is.
this. So that's great. Well, thanks for your
I
time,
look forward to getting your
Louise.
application.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll look forward to reviewing those, and I hope this has been
Excellent.
useful. And if you get any other questions, then you can see in front of you there,
Yep.
governance@iosh.com. But don't forget the website, iosh.com.
Yes.
There's plenty of information in there that you can look to as well. So thanks for your time. I hope it's proved useful, and yeah, we look forward to possibly meeting you in the future.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Bye.